Very good
Very good
morning.
morning.
Our
Our
IQAC
IQAC
coordinator
coordinator
and
and
principal,
principal,
Professor
Professor
Vanita
Vanita
Kochi,
Kochi,
madam.
madam.
I would
I
like to
would like to
request you
request you
to
to
please
please
give
give
our
our
principal
principal
address.
address.
Vanita,
Vanita,
madam,
madam.
mic is
Thank you.
handed to you.
I am audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning and welcome to everyone. I pay my greet to Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, our founder, President, Shikshan Mahasi Punjabrao Deshmukh, Dalit Mitra Panditnath Patil. Today's program is National Level Workshop on Cryptocurrency, organized by our Computer Department. Today's program, President, our college principal, Dr. A.M. Garode sir, resource person, Professor Chitra Desai, Professor and Head, HOD, National Defense Academy, Khadakwasla, Pune, Dr. Kadam sir, Head of the Department, Computer Science, Dr. Mukti Jadhav, Madam, Coordinator of today's program, and Dr. Sonali Gaikwad, Organizing Secretary, and dear all President, welcome all of you. I, Dr. Vanita Pochi, IQAC Coordinator of our college. Dear participants, our college established in 1967, having multi-faculty programs. Our computer department it is again established in 1987, having UG and PG programs. So today's topic is cryptocurrency, which is new and interesting topic. Then cryptocurrency, which is a digital and virtual currency that is secured by cryptography and stored on computerized data. But how it is invested or where it is secure, all these so many questions arise among us, and these questions are again behind this cryptocurrency because it doesn't rely on banks on verified transaction. So today's workshop is to create awareness about all these facts and figures regarding cryptocurrency. I am thankful to resource person Professor Chitra Desai Madam as well as again organizers of this today's program. So I conclude my introductory speech and again I inaugurate this today's workshops. Thank you again, thanks. Over to Mukti Jadhav Madam.
Thank you, madam. A very good morning to one and all present here. I, Dr. Mukti Jadhav, coordinator of this workshop, would like to welcome the honorable delegates, faculty members, organizing committee, and participants from various regions of India for the national workshop on cryptocurrency. I am really happy to start my today's morning with all of you. As you all know, we all are gathered here to participate in knowledgeable weather of National Workshop on Cryptocurrency, one of the most intellectual events organized by Department of Computer Science of Shri Shivaji Science and Arts College, Chikri, District Buldhana. This workshop has been arranged for gaining the wider range of knowledge about cryptocurrency. The theme of this workshop is because of the relevance and importance of cryptocurrency. Before introducing the workshop, I would like to share the amazing response of our workshop received from various parts of India. We received near about 160 registration from MP, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, UP, Andhra Pradesh and other states of India including Maharashtra. A cryptocurrency is a digital or virtual currency that is secured by cryptography, which make it nearly impossible to counterfeit or double spend. Many cryptocurrencies are decentralized networks based on blockchain technology. a distributed ledger enforced by the separate network of computers. A defining feature of cryptocurrencies are that they are generally not issued by any central authority, rendering from theoretically immune to government interference or manipulation. Cryptocurrency are systems that allow for online secure payment which are denominated in terms of virtual tokens, which are represented by ledger entries internal to the system. Some of the importance of cryptocurrencies hold the promise to make it easier to transfer funds directly between two parties without the need of trusted third party like bank and credit card companies. These transfers are secure by the use of public key and private keys and different forms of incentive system like proof of work or proof of stake. I feel very honored and privileged to have with us Professor Chitra Desai Madam, Head of the Department of Computer Science, National Defence Academy Khadakwasla, Pune, as our resource person. I hope that it will be a very useful workshop for all participants. I like this opportunity to wish you all the very best in your future. So, I wish you all once again a mind blowing experience of this workshop. Thank you. Dr. Gaikwad Madam, please give brief introduction of our resource person, Professor Chitra Desai Madam. The mic is hand over to you, ma'am, please. Dr. Gaikwad ma'am, please.
Good morning all. Dr. Chitra Ganesh Desai, Professor of Computer Science and Head of a Faculty of Computational Science at the National Defence Academy, Khadakwasla, Pune. Has 18 years of experience in academics. In 2012, she got selected through UPSC as a Professor and a Head, National Defence Academy, Khadakwasla, Pune. Professor Chitra Desai is also Director for the BTech program at NDA. She is basically a science graduate and completed her Masters of Computer Application from a Government Engineering College, Aurangabad in 2000. She has been awarded with a PhD in 2006 in the subject of Computer Science with the study area in software reliability. She has also completed MTech by research in network security from Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University, Aurangabad. Along with the teaching, she also has more than 10 years of administrative experience. Her interests in administration include her pursue MBA with a specialization in human resource management. Dr. Chitra Desai, fellow member of IETE and a member of various other professional bodies, has more than 60 research articles published in a journal and a conference proceeding of a national and international review. Several students have completed their PhD under her guidance in the area of cryptography, software engineering and GIS. In August 2019, she has been awarded for getting ranked in a top 5 data science leader by International School of Artificial Intelligence and Data Science. In January 2017, she has been awarded with the Award for Research Excellence from Aalborg University, Denmark. She has also extensively contributed to various programs under Industry Institute Interaction and was recognized for her contribution as a project coordinator for Technology for Rural Development by Starlight India. Dr. Chitra Desai has also coordinated several workshops in association with the IIT Bombay under the National Mission for Education and ICT. She was organized for a spoken tutorial project of IIT Bombay and in 2015 received appreciation by IIT Bombay for outstanding contribution renowned to spread free and open source software in the state of Maharashtra. is currently making outstanding contribution of using ICT based teaching and learning methodology at NDA. This involves defining short term and long term development plans for a e-learning ecosystem at the NDA, framing of a SOP for conducting of a e-learning, experimenting and initializing and deploying various tools for a conduct of a e-class, e-lab and faculties with a learning management system and utilizing it for the cadet training. Appreciated by the Commandant NDA April 2020 for a devotion to the all-round grooming of a cadets and effort during shutdown period due to COVID-19. Recently, May 2020, completed course on universal human value by AICTE and it's on the way to ensure those to the next level faculties and students. Dr. Chitra Desai's primary focus is on education as she believes it has become very essential, especially because of new challenges of a technology revolving and its utilization for well-being of the human being. Thank you. Now mic is a handover to Mukta ma'am.
Chitra ma'am, please continue.
Good morning, Chitra ma'am. Mic is a handover to
Thank you,
you.
Sonali Gaikwad.
Please.
Good morning. Yes.
Now we are
Thank
waiting for
you, Sonali Gaikwad, for the introduction.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Good morning, ma'am. Now mic is handover to you and.
Okay, I'm
shall
sharing.
we start? I'm audible to you, ma'am.
Yes, let's start.
I'm
I'm
audible
sharing
to
my screen. Yes.
Share your
Am I
screen
audible?
with, participants and continue your lecture.
Are you able to see the screen?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for organizing this workshop on cryptocurrency. We know that today this cryptocurrency is gaining its own widespread acknowledgement throughout, and understanding what this cryptocurrency has become essential for us, as we are saying that maybe in future this cryptocurrency may be responsible for having a lot of changes into the economy, not in a particular state but into a global scenario. So understanding cryptocurrency, particularly when we are from the field of computer science and how it functions, has gained a lot of interest among most of us. So today, within I would like to thank the organizers, particularly I would also like to thank Dr. Mukti Zadav, who has taken effort to organize this webinar, and the entire organizing team. I'll start with this cryptocurrency topic. Before we go to cryptocurrency, first we need to understand that yes, it is the money that is in the market that has helped us to understand how the exchange of goods and services are taking place. So from a long period of time, if we see, there were various modes of exchanges. The type of money that came up has been transformed over a period of time. This transformation has helped us to also understand that to back a particular currency into a particular state, there were various modes applied. Initially, we used to see that there were precious metals like gold, which backed the currency. Also, presently, we see that the value of nation's currency is determined by fiat. Before we get into cryptocurrency, I would like to give a small touch to what we mean by this terminologies, that from economic front, we try to understand how this cryptocurrency is impacting throughout. So when we say a fiat currency, basically, a fiat is a money which a government is issuing it and is not backed by any commodity such as gold, where the central banks have the control over it, and most of the modern currencies such as the US dollars, Indian rupees, all these are called as
आपलं कनेक्शन गेलं का?
here into a computational network, we are going to see how this cryptocurrency is functioning. So to understand the technicalities into it, let me start with some example. For example, there are a lot of cryptocurrencies, but I would like to pick up the most well-known currency, that is Bitcoin. So how this Bitcoin evolved over a period of time, and that will help us to understand how the cryptocurrency is moving ahead. If we look at the paper titled Bitcoin, which came up in 2008, this was given by some developer. His name is Satoshi Nakamoto. You cannot say whether he's a male, female, or it is a group of people. The identity is hidden over there. And this paper came up where a lot of people started looking into that what this particular Bitcoin electronic cash system is. He started writing mail to most of the people where he felt that yes, these people might be interested in something that is called as cryptocurrency or bit kind of things. If you look in 2010, the first sale of an item using Bitcoin, it took place where a customer swapped 10,000 Bitcoins for gaining 2 pizzas. Over a period of time, when we start from say 2012, where the price of Bitcoin was $5, up to 2017, it shooted up to $1,000. Now, how these things are happening in and around us, that we need to understand that yes, people started gaining interest in Bitcoins, and from $5 it went to $1,000, and today we all know what this price of cryptocurrency has reached in 2021. But to relate it more, why this cryptocurrency or Bitcoin particularly is gaining so much of value, I'll take you to the recent example. In on 12th of February 2021, we could see that on ZNet, an article flashed up where Tesla announced that it had purchased $1.5 billion of cryptocurrency. Now, when you look at the investment of such a big company into cryptocurrency, that it also says or gives a hint to the customer, probably they will be in a position to buy their car by using Bitcoins, then this gains the market value for cryptocurrency. Because if you look at money, if money can be spent, if you can buy, if there is some demand and you can buy, then the money has a value. If I say that I have Bitcoins or if I have a cryptocurrency and I'm not able to spend it, probably the value of that has no sense over there. So now if you look at such examples, people are inclined to understand, yes, what these Bitcoins are, what these cryptocurrencies are, and how these are gaining values when big companies like this step in. Also, definitely we will be interested in understanding that, yes, I will spend it, but how should I earn it? To our surprise, while I was going through a lot of articles, I came across this Economics Time article where you could see that people are also getting paid in cryptocurrencies. And most importantly, if you see, the first adopters were the Indian freelancers and techies among the first who adopted their payment into cryptocurrency. And while it acceptance that people are now ready to accept their payment in crypto for their work. Though there are various pros and cons if we try to look at it from the economic perspectives, yes, these things are going in and around us. And that is why cryptocurrency is gaining its own significance. Also, when it comes to income, whenever we work, we say we are into an active income. But there are also people who also invest for some passive incomes. And if you look at the asset class, you can see that what change has been shown by this, or what big gain has been taken up by this cryptocurrency. This particular cutting is from 18th March Economic Times magazine, and you can see that from 18th March 2020 to 18th March 2021, if anybody would have invested into the equities, they would have 72% of gain. In fixed income, you keep your money into a fixed account and try to gain certain returns onto it. It's hardly some 6-7% in the company. Times 10, a 14% of gain. And if you look at cryptocurrency, 795% of gain in 1 year. That is, these values are from 18th March 2020 to 18th March 2021. This amount of gain you can observe with this cryptocurrency. And that is why probably we are today into this workshop to understand what this cryptocurrency is. In technical terms, cryptocurrency is nothing but it is an internet-based medium of exchange. So it is used use cryptographic functions to conduct financial transactions, and the cryptocurrency leverages the blockchain technology, again decentralization, transparency, and immutability. Now, when you look at this directly, we might find that the words are like so technical that how to understand really what is cryptocurrency. I'll get into my presentation, but right now, let's understand cryptocurrency and internet exchange. We'll see all the technicalities or the details that we need to understand the concept of blockchain, what we mean by decentralization, what we mean by transparency and immutability, that helps us to understand the function of cryptocurrencies. Where we see again, there is decentralization and which manage the there's a central agency which is taking control over this thing. But when we talk about decentralized nature, this decentralized nature of the cryptocurrency tells us that there are blockchains which are managing these things. And when we say that there is some transaction between two parties, then that transaction takes place with the help of a private and public key. So in short, again, if I want to clearly distribute each and every understanding of this concept, then we can say that cryptocurrency is a digital or virtual currency that is meant to be a medium of exchange. It is just like any real world currency, but it does not have any physical embodiment. It uses cryptography. So we'll be seeing cryptography because cryptocurrency uses cryptography. We'll also get into decentralization understanding of how the things work because it works in decentralized manners independent of the bank. They generate this money, how this cryptocurrency is generated, that we are going to understand, and how new coins are generated or added to a blockchain based on certain algorithms, that also we will understand. So starting with the very basic concept, that is cryptography. To understand cryptocurrency, we know our general understanding of cryptography. The general understanding of cryptography tells us that there is some message X which we pass it through the system, which is called as a plain text, and an ciphertext is generated. So basically, converting a plain text to ciphertext, we call it as an encryption. And when we take the ciphertext and convert it to the original message, we call it decryption. Now, when we say plain text, what is this plain text? It can be anything. It can be your email, it can be files, database, credit card, and any other data. So this plain text which is obtained, it is then sent through an encryptor through the insecure communication channel, and it is decrypted. So in this example, suppose Alice, who wants to take this plain text X and send it to Bob. But before sending it to Bob, Alice wants to encrypt it. So what Alice will do, it will take some key. We'll come to what are the types of key in cryptography. It will take some type of key, encrypt it, and then it will send it to the insecure communication channel. Why I am using the word insecure? Because basically the whole concept of cryptography comes in because when we say that we are communicating it to a network channel, we assume that it is not secure because it is a possibility that some intruder, Oscar, can get into your system and try to tamper your data or hack your data. So whenever your data is moving into the system, it will be converted from the plain text to the ciphertext. When it reaches to the actual recipient, the Bob, he will use the algorithm for decryption and this X is obtained, which is our original plain text, which is received by Bob. So basically, we see that this key system takes the plain text and encrypts it to give the ciphertext. And similarly, when it goes to decryption, it takes the ciphertext, the plain text, the key, and the plain text. Now, when we talk about this key, we need to understand what are the different types of keys we have. So, the key can be a symmetric key or it can be a asymmetric key. So, key is a value that works with a cryptographic algorithm to produce a specific ciphertext. So when we talk about a symmetric key, basically we say that we'll be using the same key for encryption and decryption. And we look at the asymmetric key, then in that case we say that we have pair of key, that is a pair of a public and private key. Let us try to understand with the help of this diagram. In this diagram, we see that there is Alice who wants to send a plain text to Bob. So both this Alice and Bob, they are making use of a single secret key in the symmetric key algorithm. So encryption is done with the same key as well as decryption is also done with the same key, both at the end of Alice and Bob. But then there are limitations for the symmetric key. What are these limitations? First, because both of them have to use the same key, there is a problem of key distribution, because if the same insecure communication channel is being used to transmit the key, just like your message can be hacked, there is a possibility that your key can also be hacked. Another, if you say that let us have a centralized distribution, that is a key distribution center, you cannot guarantee if the KDC gets compromised. Also, when it comes to cryptographic algorithm, we know that it is governed by random number generations. Also, random number generations have their own limitations. These are also some of the limitations which add on to the symmetric key utilization, and then the placement of the encryption function. All these things, we see that this contribute to symmetric key limitations. And then in 1976, Diffie-Hellman came up to overcome these limitations, and where he produced something that is a concept called as asymmetric key cryptography. This asymmetric key cryptography, which was given by Diffie-Hellman, he found that there should be a pair of key, one which will be called as a public key and one which will be called as a private key. So this public and private key combination will help us to ensure that there comes up a pre-establishment secret key sharing between the two parties. So basically, when we are talking about any public key crypto system, it may be made publicly available while the private key must be kept secret. We'll get to the diagram that will help us to understand basically how this works. As I said, that we have the public key and the private key. So these two keys are made available. Public key, the word itself tells that this key is publicly available, and private key tells that this private key is held privately by the holder. Suppose Alice wants to make some communication with Bob. So what Alice will do, Alice will take the public key of Bob, encrypt the plain text message, and this plain text encrypted message, that is the ciphertext, will reach Bob. When Bob receives this ciphertext, it will take its private key and decipher it, and the plain text is being opted. So basically what is happening when the communication takes place? Alice will communicate with Bob. While Alice wants to send the message to Bob, it is going to take Bob's public key, encrypt the message, and then send it to Bob, which after receiving the decrypted message will use its private key and obtain the corresponding plain text. So this is how the public key private key combination is going to work. We are seeing all these things because we need to move ahead and understand that how things works into cryptocurrency. So cryptocurrency will be using digital signatures where they will be also making use of the public key identities. So our basic understanding of public private key is very essential at this moment. So this much is enough for us to go ahead and understand how cryptocurrency works. Here our understanding of public key and private key has to be very clear, and that will help us to understand further concepts. Now, while we are dealing with cryptographic algorithms, or when we say particularly, when I'm talking here about the public key cryptography, there are a lot of mathematical functions that are available. When I say a cryptographic algorithm, there means there are certain mathematical functions which are associated. Most well-known problems that are governed by these cryptographic algorithms are based on integer factorization and discrete logarithm. So basically, when we talk more into computational terms, we see that this integer factorization and discrete logarithms are made such that they correspond to the NP-hard problem, such that when we use this integer factorization in algorithms like RSA or discrete logarithms in algorithms like ELGAMALS, their mathematical computations gives the strength to that cryptographic algorithms. Now, in each of this algorithm, let us not get into more of what the math is behind this RSA and ELGAMAL in terms of integer factorization or discrete logarithm, but let us understand that there is one mathematical function and inverse of that mathematical function. So when I say there is one mathematical function, this mathematical function will be used for encryption and its inverse will be used for decryption. So generally we need to find a pair where we have this mathematical function and the inverse of that mathematical function. But when you look at this integer factorization, discrete logarithm algorithms, basically we can call them, these are some of the conventional kind of public key crypto systems. And and when we look at this conventional public key crypto systems, we see that the key size is very large in this case. To overcome the problem of key size in this which is very large, there is a concept of modern cryptography which brings in to picture that is called as the elliptical curve crypto system. This elliptical curve crypto system will help us to solve the large key size problem, and therefore the computational efforts related to the creations of this crypto system and so on. So basically, again, not getting much into elliptical curve system, but a small understanding onto what an elliptical curve crypto system means. It is basically nothing but a curve over real numbers which may be defined over a set of points. Like if I say I have point x and y, then we want to satisfy a curve which has the equation y square is equal to x cube plus ax plus b, where all this x, y, a and b are the real numbers, and the choice of numbers a and b yields us the different elliptical curves. So if you look at this elliptical curve, find that is a curve here, we see that it forms a symmetry. When I talk about a symmetry in the curve, basically I can relate it to our conventional crypto system, which says about the mathematical equation and the inverse of that mathematical equation. And the same can be attained with the elliptical curve, and that is why elliptical curves have become and represent a very good utility into the modern crypto systems over here. And if you look at bitcoins are basically also using the this elliptical curve system at the back. And that is why introducing you to elliptical curves is essential over here. That yes, the today's cryptocurrency at the backend, they are using this elliptical curve concepts. When we talk about cryptography, we are talking it in terms of yes, some data, the message that has been encrypted, decrypted, and so on. But when it comes to cryptocurrency, then there are certain primitives on which these cryptocurrencies are built. So to understand those primitives, we look into what these primitives are in short, and then try to understand how they function. So if I look at the cryptography primitives, the first one is the cryptographic hash function. The second one is the digital signature, and the third one is the public key identities. If you have worked into cryptography, you know that if we look into detail each of these three primitives, they are all surrounded by the cryptography. So let us see one by one what this cryptography hash function is, what this digital signature is, what this public key identity means when it comes into this system of cryptocurrency. Cryptographic hash function. Now, in a layman's language, if I want to tell what is a cryptographic hash function, it is to produce a fingerprint or a digest of a block of data. So if I want to say that yes, this is my fingerprint or digest for a block of data, it is the cryptographic hash function that I'm going to use it. So it is a block of data where it can be a date, message, a document, anything. As I told you in case of plain text, it can be any set of data that we are looking into. This hash function, size of the digest is fixed, so the input can be of any size. So whenever we look at the hash functions or cryptographic hash functions, the input can be of any size, but the output will be of fixed size. When I talk in terms of Bitcoin, uses SHA-256 hash function over there. So we see that the output will be based on this 256 bits over here. Now let us move step by step into getting our understanding more clear onto what we mean by cryptographic hash function. Before I land up into cryptographic hash function, let us review on to our understanding of what we mean by a hash function. Basically, a hash function is a mathematical function with the following three properties. One, its input can be any string of any size. So if I look at this particular diagram, I have my message M. This message M can be of any arbitrary length. So this will go to my hash function. So here my hash function will compute the input that has been provided to it. Then it produces a fixed size output. For example, let us say 256-bit fixed output. So when the output is generated, it is a fixed length. So input is of an arbitrary length and output which is of a fixed length. So it is efficiently computable. So when I say that I am going to generate a hash function, or I am going to generate a hash using a hash function from an arbitrary length input, it has to be ensured that it is efficiently computable. This means that given some input string, you can figure out what the output of the hash function is in a reasonable amount of time. When I say a reasonable amount of time, our concept of polynomial time comes into, because if I'm using an algorithm for doing any task, basically I need to ensure that the task is achieved into a polynomial time. So we have to ensure that this has been achieved. So a small example which will help us to understand that how this hash function works. Suppose if I have my message M. In this case, my message M is, say, Elvis. Now this message M, when it goes to a hash function H, this hash function H is going to produce some hash value. So how do we compute here? Say we will take corresponding values across each of these letters, and because we have 26 letters from A to Z, we will take mod 26. Now we take the addition of all these numbers and take the mod. This is the hash value that is generated for the message. So this is what we say that a hash function generates the hash value for some given message M. So here this message M can be of any size. Whatever the output generating from that particular hash function, we can define this by fixed length. Now, when we talk about hash, this basically what a hash function is. But when I talk about cryptographic hash functions, there are some additional properties which need to be added to this hash function. What are these additional properties which make this hash function different, this cryptographic hash function different from the hash function? That is, first, it should be collision resistant, hiding should be there, and puzzle friendliness. Now let us get into understanding each of these three concepts more detail. When I talk about collision, basically what does collision means? When I have a hash value which is going to help me to define some uniqueness into the system that I am using, I want that for any message X, if that hash function is being generated, there should not be any other message Y for which the same hash function is generated. If this happens, then we say that there is a collision. For example, if I have message X, say Viva, and again I have another message Y which has some value Vegas, then in this case the hash of X is equal to hash of Y is equal to 2. So if I compute the hash of both these two X and Y, both land up into the same value 2. So if I have same different X, that is two different messages X and Y, both landing up into a same hash function, then we say that collision is occurred. So we have to ensure what into cryptographic hash function, that the system is collision resistant. So I have to ensure that no two messages are going to give me the same hash values. Now, if for to define it in technical terms, what collision resistant is, it is a hash function H which is said to be collision resistant if it is invisible to point two values X and Y such that X is not equal to Y, yet H of X is equal to H of Y. So I'm not talking about the same message and through same message we are getting the same hash function. We are talking about two different messages which are giving me the same hash function, and this has to be avoided. And this is one of the property of the cryptographic hash function. Second, we have to ensure that hiding is achieved. What this hiding property tells us that for some given input X, we are going to generate some hash function Y. So we say Y equal to H of X. When we order this Y from the hash function H of X, from this Y, I am not in a position to figure out what this X was. When this is achieved, we say that hiding is achieved. Otherwise, anybody can take X and get Y. So there is no point generating a hash function Y when you are able to do reverse computation. That is why you are able to compute X. So whenever we restrict the computation of X, we say it is not feasible. We may not say it is not possible, but it is not feasible. When we use this word not feasible, it means that a lot of computation efforts will be included. We try to compute the X from the given X. So this basically is a mathematical function. So mathematically, they put a lot of computation efforts and they can attempt to identify what this X was given H of X. But yes, it should be such that you find it infeasible with the available resources to compute this X. So this is the hiding property of the cryptographic hash function. Next, we talk about the puzzle-friendly property of the cryptographic hash function, where basically a hash function is said to be puzzle-friendly if at every two possible n-bit output value y, if k is chosen from a distribution with high min entropy, then it is infeasible to find x such that the hash function where this k, which has been chosen from a distribution concatenated with our message x, gives us y in a significantly less than 2 to the power n time. So when about this particular puzzle friendliness, it goes more technically into understanding this concept, because here if I have a very huge message and I'm trying to compute y out of it, it is very much possible. But think about a scenario where I am talking about a data where I say that I flip a coin which has only two possible outcomes. My data is either head or tail, and based on that some hash value is being computed. For this small data which is available with me, it is very much possible to predict the other set of data over there. And such type of X data is available to us, which is very small in nature. Basically, we may take support of this K, which is chosen from a distribution with high min entropy. And we say high min entropy, basically it means it is a measure of how predictable an outcome is. And it is based on an idea that captures from the distribution of a random variable which is spread around. So here, if I concatenate this k, which is chosen from the random distribution with x, then probably when the y is obtained, it is not easy to identify what this x was. Otherwise, it would have been easy if I would have not concatenated with k. So this is what is the puzzle-friendly property of cryptographic hash function. So basically, if you look at various hash functions, you must have also come across. There is a lot of different hash functions which are available, and we have also maybe seen their applications in most of the algorithms. Now that we have understood first of the primitive, that what we mean by basically the cryptographic hash function, another important primitive is the digital signature. You look at digital signatures, these are the public key primitives of message authentication. In the physical world, it is common to use handwritten signatures, but when it comes to a digital world, basically we bind the messages with the digital signature. Signing something with digital signature and I commit it, that means my commitment is, I cannot revert back. I cannot say that it was not signed by me, because it is accompanied with the timestamp which is associated with the message and the digital signature that has been created. Again, when we deal with cryptocurrency, along with the cryptographic hash function, the digital signatures are playing very important role to cryptocurrency, because they are the basis of authentication with the help of the use of public-private combinations that are useful in understanding how cryptographic functions, these cryptocurrencies work. So let us understand that how this digital signature scheme works. Suppose we are working with any digital signature scheme, there will be three algorithms. One, which will be used to generate the keys. Second, you sign it. And third, you verify. So when I'm working with any digital signature scheme, these three algorithms are very, very important. Now when we say we generate key, so when we generate key, the key is generated in pair. That is SKP, where SK I will call it the secret key, which is used to sign the message, and P is the public key, that is the verification key given to anybody. Secret key is called secret key because it is held by me. I am the owner of the signature, digital signature. The secret key is held by me, whereas public key is available publicly to anybody who can make use of this public key to verify whether I am the signing authority of that particular document which is signed using a digital signature. So when we have the pair of key message, we sign it with the help of our secret key. So once that message is signed using the secret key, the signature out the signature for the message with the key is only signing is not important, the validity of it also needs to be verified. So we have this verification algorithm where we take the public key of the signer who signed using his secret key, the message and the signature. See here, nowhere a person is getting access to the secret key. You have the public key available, the message and the signature that returns true if signature is valid and false otherwise. So this verification algorithm has to verify and generate the true status to ensure that the signer is the same who has created. So valid signature must verify that you have the message which is signed using the sign SK, and with public key you are trying to verify it to generate the status true. So if there is any forgeable attempts that are made to forge your signatures, then probably this can be identified if it's done into the system. There are various experiments which are actually worked out at the back end, so that people who bring out their digital signatures, they check whether these things worked or not. Here is an example how the things are worked. Here usually you see that whenever a digital signature is created, the challenger who created the digital signature wants to verify with the help of the attacker that how strong his digital signature is. So what happens, this challenger challenges this attacker that you make all possible attempts to see that you are able to break my signature. So this challenger, he will first receive some message from this attacker. This challenger, he has generated his SK, secret key and public key. Public key is visible to whom? To the attacker. This attacker will do what? This attacker will send message M0 to the challenger. Now when this challenger receives it, he will sign it and send back it to the attacker. Attacker will make multiple attempts of sending multiple messages to this challenger, M0, M1 and so on. After learning lot of messages that it has received after signing from the challenger, this attacker tries to create one message M, which is different from any of this M0, M1, M2, M3. It's a totally different new message M, which he signs, which he says that it is an sign which is the sign of the challenger, and send it to the challenger. He tells challenger that I have studied a lot of your signatures and now I have made an attempt to sign this message capital M with your signature, and you just verify whether I have done that. If it has been verified, then the attacker wins. That is, he is able to use his SK to decrypt this message, or to ensure this message M, which was signed by the signature which the attacker has created by applying his logic, and yes, the attacker wins over here. If the attacker, when he sent this message M and signature, if the verification algorithm turns out to be false, then the challenger wins the challenge. So this way we see that how the challenges and attackers work into the system to ensure that a strong digital signature is prevailed and distributed. So in a nutshell, if we want to understand how the model of digital signature works, we have seen up till now what we mean by a hash function, what is a digital signature. So these things, when we put together, basically we can see that there is a signer and there is a verifier. So what the signer does, he has the data, he makes use of the hash that is generated from the hash function into a signature algorithm using his private key. Once that is done, the data with the signature is sent to the verifier. The verifier again ensures that the hash function that he has equals to the hash, this hash, it has to equal to this hash. If this hash and this hash is equal, and the signer's public key, if verifies that algorithm, we say that yes, the model of digital signature ensures that the signer who signed that particular message is then verified by the verifier by generating the status true for the verification algorithm. So in short, this is how the hash functions and the digital signatures together ensure that the data is signed by an authenticate digital signature. Another important thing that when it comes that if I'm signing, then I need to have my identity. So the third cryptographic primitive that we need to understand here is the public key identities. My public key is an identity which I have over here. Now, basically, when it comes to cryptocurrency, then you are known by your identity into the system. When you create a cryptocurrency, your public key identity is been generated over there. So, understanding what is public key identity is very, very essential over here. So, if we see signature such that we verify our message PK message with the public key PK, which was signed using SK, we say that we have this matching secret key SK for the PK, and that ensures that yes, I have my public key identity into the system. So usually we make use, as we have seen in the diagram earlier, that here we see that the hash functions, the private key combination and the public key combination, this all helps us to understand that how the public key identification can be done into the system. So why this public key identity is very important in cryptocurrency, because as we started discussing that we don't have a central authority or central mechanism for this. It is a decentralized entity management. So when we look at the public key identity, that gives us a strength and understanding, or giving us a complete freedom into working into a decentralized identity management system. So when it comes to example Bitcoin, then these identities are called addresses. I as an individual will not be known by my name or any authenticate documents which we have today to present our identity. But in a Bitcoin scenario, these addresses are our identities that are created in the system. I as an individual, I can have multiple identities for myself over there. Definitely they have to be verified by the entire ecosystem of the Bitcoin over there. But yes, I need not be known by my personal name over there, but I will be definitely generating my identities as addresses into this Bitcoin. And that is why when we look at all these things, like cryptographic hash functions, digital signatures, and public key identities, these play very important role over there to have your decentralized identity and the management into the system of a cryptocurrency. So here, addresses are not directly connected to real world entity. This is very, very important to understand, because if I say what is my identity into the real world, that identity is not directly connected to the addresses which are being created into this Bitcoin. But yes, when you are into the ecosystem of that particular cryptocurrency, the observers can link together the addresses activity over a time and make several inferences. So when I say they make several inferences, that inferences can be in the terms of whether I am an honest coin generator, or honestly I'm taking out my transactions and working into the system, or there is some dishonesty created over the path into the blockchain that has been observed. All these things are being observed by your address activity. So from that various inferences are drawn, and a very very much caution has been taken by the people who transact in this crypto system, cryptocurrency ecosystem. Again, now moving a step ahead into a small more details about understanding how these things function. So for that, we need to introduce ourselves to something that is called as hash pointers and data structures. So when I talk about hash pointers and data structures, so basically we have understood what we mean by a hash. So if I say that what is a pointer, so pointer, it is going to point to a particular data. So to my previous node and my current node, this combinations in linked list, we see that how they work over there. But this, instead of pointer, when I use a cryptographic hash of the info, then we call it as a cryptographic hash pointer over there. So if we have a hash pointer, we can ask to get the info back and verify that it hasn't changed. So let us understand how this works. If I want to represent here that how my data will look like, I have this hash and I have this my cryptographic hash function. This will be used basically in our cryptocurrencies to ensure our identities and so on later on. So to build data hash pointers, you can have linked list, you can have binary trees also, which can be built over here. You have to ensure that while you are building any data structure over this hash pointers, they should not be cyclic in nature. Because if they're cyclic in nature, then probably the origin of that or the head of that particular hash pointer will not be identified, and it will defeat the basic purpose of the blockchain that is used to maintain the that is used into the cryptocurrency. So if I say that I am the originator of this particular hash function, so this uh, my value of this particular hash function will relate to this data, and accordingly you will see that this chain is being created. So we have data, we have this transactions that takes place, and they're related, and this concept is called as the uh, blockchain over here. So if I am saying that yes, there is some message over here which has got tampered. So if this tampering of data takes place, definitely it will not match to this hash function. Then the adversary says that, okay, if I have tampered this data at this particular location, let me tamper with this particular hash function also. If it has done that, probably it may not match with the previous hash function. And you see that if somebody in a blockchain is trying to do tampering at one particular location, it has to keep on consistently making this at every place. Let us say that the one who is trying to tamper is so smart that he has managed to make the consistent changes at this point, and this point. But now at this point, which is the hash head which is available over here, he will not be able to make any it is just impossible for him to make any changes or attempts to make changes in this particular hash function. And that is why from here it will be tracked that where exactly the tampering has taken place, and this is what it gives the strength to the blockchain technology into the cryptocurrency. Now with that, we also need to understand the Merkle tree, wherein whenever we talk about a blockchain that is created over a period of time, it will be very difficult to store that huge amount of data in the chain that is created. So this Merkle tree, what it does, it will, instead of storing the whole lot of data, it is going to only remember the hashes that are associated with it, and it keeps on creating a binary tree structure to remember this hash. The advantage of this is what, that you are able to prove the membership into a Merkle tree. So if I'm talking about I am the member of this particular tree, then this can be very well proved with this Merkle tree into the blockchain. Also, if we look at the advantages this Merkle tree gives us, we need not travel through the entire tree. If we look take a particular path, like if I want to have only this particular path, that is enough for me. We need not go into the entire Merkle tree, and because of that, in a log at times space, we are able to do this. Also, if we sort this Merkle tree, we find that the non-membership can also be verified from the system. So, more generally, you can use hash pointers in any pointer-based data structures where we do not have cycles, and we can keep track of all this members that are involved into that Merkle tree, and non-member identification is also possible. Now coming back, if we have now understood what a cryptocurrency is and how this blockchain functions, so we see that cryptocurrency is a use case of a blockchain technology. While cryptocurrency cannot exist without blockchain, the reverse does not apply. So if you are using cryptocurrency, you are using blockchain technology for this cryptocurrency. It is not that cryptocurrency and blockchain are synonym to each other, or if you cryptocurrency, if blockchain is that it is only used for cryptocurrency, but it is one of the use cases that you are using in a blockchain. There are a lot of many applications of blockchain that are happening. Now that we have understood so many things about when it comes to cryptocurrency, what is blockchain, what we mean by this cryptographic hash function, digital signatures, and so on, let's take an example where we say that we are going to create set of goofy coins. Now, if I want to create a goofy coin, or say like the goofy wants to create a goofy coin, how he can create a new coin? He will make use of this data structure. In this data structure, he will create a coin with a unique coin ID, and he is going to sign that by his own signature. Now see, here comes that I am using some cryptographic hash functions to create the coin. I'm going to make use of the digital signature to sign. I have the speaking Goofy is my public identity that has been generated over here. So once all this set, I have my coin with me. Once this coin is available, I want to give this coin to Alice. So I want to spend this coin and I give it to Alice. So what happens when this coin, which was created by Goofy, is given to Alice, a cryptographic hash function is linked to this Goofy. So here we say that Alice has received a coin from Goofy, and this cryptographic hash function which is linked to this Goofy tells that now the owner of this coin is Alice. Now what Alice has got his own coin, it is now got its own coin, so it will spend it to Bob. Now what happens, another hash function is generated, and you can now see that the creator of the coin, the receiver of the coin, the further the coin get transacted from Alice to Bob, all these are stored into a structure wherein with the help of hash function they are linked to each other, as well as they are signed by respective owners. So from here you can see that Goofy signs it, then Alice signs it, and now Alice gives it to Bob. And if we trace this path from here to here to here, we see that yes, this sounds to be a valid transaction because it is linked from the originator to the last recipient over here. So this is how it maintains a chain to understand how the things work. But when we look at this Goofy coin, there is something that makes us on, and that is, what if Alice spends it to Bob as well as to Chuck? The same coin. Like here, if Alice, who is giving this to Chuck, he will see that Chuck will see that yes, I am linked to Alice and Alice is linked to Goofy. So for him, this is a very much relevant path, which Bob itself also sees as a relevant path. Now what Alice has done, it has done double spending. It has spent onto the Chuck also, and it is spent to Bob also. But Chuck is not aware that the same coin was spent to Bob, and Bob is also not aware that the same coin was spent to Bob. So in such scenario, what is happening? Double spending attack has taken place, and so to resolve this kind of attack, we require something that is called as Scrooge coin. So we will be moving towards actual practical coins ahead, but let us get into Scrooge coin and understand that how the Goofy coin problem of the spending is resolved. So what happens in this case, you see that this Scrooge is going to create his own hash function, and it is going to link it, as we saw that the data structure in the blockchain is being created. In the previous case, we did not have any blockchain concept over here. But now, to ensure that double spending attack is taken care of, this Scrooge will ensure that the transactions are recorded into the blockchain. Every block may have its own Merkle tree where all the transactions are notified and all the hash functions are registered, and they are consistently managed over here. So the Scrooge coin publishes a ledger of all the transactions signed by Scrooge. But if you look at this Scrooge, what the Scrooge is doing, basically the Scrooge is trying to centrally operate all these things. And what happens if the Scrooge itself gets compromised or something, then definitely you don't want to trust this central party. And there comes the concept of decentralization into cryptography. Now, again, getting into the decentralized concept of cryptography, I will try to put it into layman's language what a blockchain is. Basically, it is nothing but it is a historical record of transactions, much like any database, like blocks in a chain is equal to pages in a book. So each page will have its own data, and this data will be used for further references. So this is how the blockchains work. While we are working into blockchain, we need to understand that this peer-to-peer network is also one of the important aspects when it comes to cryptocurrency. See where we started with? We started with a Goofy coin. We started with a Goofy coin, which was telling us that there is something like double spending attack, which needs to be taken care. To take the care of this double spending attack, Scrooge coin came in. The Scrooge coin told us that yes, I can do everything that is possible to ensure the things, but yes, I need to also see that the centralized concept which is there in the Scrooge coin, it needs to now become decentralized. Now, for this decentralization, we need this peer-to-peer network. So, let us have a look at the mechanism of ruling the databases of the cryptocurrency. That is, when I say databases, we are looking at the Bitcoin. So a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin consists of network of peers. Every peer has a record of complete history of all the transactions and thus of the balances of every account. So when we say that Bob gives X Bitcoin to Alice and is signed by Bob's private key, it's a public key cryptography that comes in. After signed, a transaction is broadcasted into the network and sent to from one peer to every other peer. So if I say that there is some Alice who is going to have transaction with Bob, so it is going to Alice is going to broadcast to all the peers into the network. So when this is done, we say that we are basically trying to apply this P2P technology over here. The transaction is known almost immediately by the whole network. But even if the transaction is initiated, it has to have some specific amount of time as it gets confirmed. So I will say the transaction is complete into a cryptocurrency environment or ecosystem only when after Alice and Bob who are doing that transaction, the broadcast has been done and all confirms onto it, then we say that the transaction is complete. So if we look that confirmation is one of the critical concepts in cryptocurrency. You could say that cryptocurrencies are all about confirmations basically, because until and unless you confirm a transaction, you cannot say that the valid transaction has been taken place. So as long as transaction is unconfirmed, it is pending and it can be forged also. When a transaction is confirmed, it is set to in a store. So when we use this word immutable, basically this immutability tells us what? That once the transaction is confirmed, if I have confirmed that X and Y has transacted between each other and this many Bitcoins are transferred from one person to another, then basically you cannot say that this transaction did not happen. The history of the record is made and it is irreversible. So we make use of blockchains basically to ensure this immutability over here. Now, who can confirm these transactions? Basically, the miners can only confirm the transactions in a cryptocurrency networks. They take transactions, stamp them as legit, and spread them into the network. After the transaction is confirmed by a miner, every node has to add to its database, and it has become the part of the blockchain. So, until and unless this is confirmed, you cannot say that transaction is complete. So a rule is set for every miner who will invest some amount of work, and then they have to find hash, a product of cryptographic function that connects the new block with its predecessor, which is called the proof of work. And specifically from the Bitcoin perspective, SHA-256 hash algorithm is used. If you look at this, you will see that someone who requests a transaction, this transaction which was requested will be broadcasted into the peer-to-peer network. And once that has been broadcasted, the P2P network of the nodes validate the transaction and it will generate some status using some known algorithm. So once this new block which has been generated is added to the blockchain, it becomes permanent and unalterable, and we say that the transaction is complete. So this is how the things work into a cryptocurrency, particularly example of Bitcoin. So again, coming back to the definition of cryptocurrency, let us now again go through these things and we now understand more properly what basically this definition was. Cryptocurrency is an internet-based medium of exchange, definitely, which uses cryptographical functions. Yes, we understood that, to conduct the financial transactions. So cryptocurrency leverages blockchain technology to gain what we call as decentralization, transparency and immutability. So we saw with all this technical aspects, digital signature, public key identities, cryptographic hash functions, there are basic properties of collision resistance, their puzzle friendliness and hiding properties, all this, how they contribute to ensure that these cryptocurrencies are leveraging the blockchain technology in the aspects of decentralization, transparency, and immutability. So, if you say that yes, I have understood what is cryptocurrency now, but I also want to know that how I can create my new cryptocurrency. Yes, you can start a new cryptocurrency by creating an entirely new blockchain with coin, or by forking an existing one and creating the token. So that you need to be expert at decentralized technology. You should be good into a programming skills, particularly if you're good in C sharp, C and plus plus and so on. It can be very, very helpful to you. The process of coin creation may take as little as 5 minutes. You can just copy the code of Bitcoin and add a new variable, or even change the value of something, and that's it. You can have your blockchain and coin. Definitely it's not that easy at its own, but you have to be techie into this, all these things while you're trying or attempting to do these things. While we deal with these things, when I told you that yes, you can have your coin, or you can generate a token, basically we need to understand what this coin and tokens. Coin are a part of a single blockchain, while tokens operate on existing blockchain. This is very important. See, tokens are limited to a specific industry or community. Their coins you can buy, but tokens you can't buy. So if I try to give you example of say uh, for example, if say you are doing some purchasing from say Pantaloons or Shoppers Stop or something, you gain loyalty points. So that points are kept with you. So these loyalty points are the tokens that an establishment offers. But if Pantaloon is giving me coin, I am able to spend that Pantaloon points with Pantaloons itself. So when I make any purchases with Pantaloon, I'll be able to spend that loyalty points with Pantaloon. So you can buy such loyalty points by giving money, and money is the coin over here. So while we are doing with coins, we have to remember that we need it is a part of a single blockchain. While we talk about tokens, it is basically generated from the loyalty points. So there will be a limitation in the existing blockchain. Only you will have to spend this tokens, or you will be working with the tokens. So whereas for coins, you can go for a totally new blockchain. So to maintain, support and promote the coin, you have to create whole logic of blockchain to launch your coin. Drawbacks like increased development time, significant spending, and much more will be involved when you get into this. But when you look for the fork cryptocurrency, which is created on top of an existing blockchain that is using tokens, then you will be at an advantage, because you will be utilizing the trust, popularity, and consensus mechanism of the underlying technology. So if you are planning for, or if you are looking for creating tokens, the most used ones are Ethereum, Neo, and EOS, which can be useful for you for creating from the existing coins or existing blockchain. You can go ahead with this. So in a nutshell, coin requires creation of new blockchain, whereas can be built on the existing and trusted blockchains. In-depth knowledge of blockchain and coding skills are required here. It is relatively easy to operate with the open source code. Blockchain development require more investment. Token creation is easier, faster, and more efficient. So you can have a choice whether you want to go with the creating your own coin versus the tokens that are available. So if I want to create my own coin, so basically I need to have a consensus mechanism. So there are several steps. I have taken various sites are there which will give you various steps to create this coins. I have taken the steps from Data Driven Investors, which tells you how to create your own cryptocurrency. Here it chooses it tells us that you choose a consensus mechanism, because you have to agree upon certain set of protocols before you add a block into a legitimate transaction. Then you pick a blockchain platform. There are several blockchain platforms which are available, and these platforms they depend upon the consensus mechanism which you selected in the step 1. So there are several available. You have to identify the one which best suits you or as per the architecture you have planned to. Then design the nodes. You have to decide the working and functionality of your blockchain and design the nodes accordingly. For instance, will the permission be private or public? the hosting will be done on cloud or on premises or on both, or what would be required hardware details for execution. All these things in terms of your node designing, you have to finalize that. You need to integrate the APIs. Some pre-built APIs are available. Some of them are listed over here. You can make use of those APIs. Then you have to design the interface. Building a world-class cryptocurrency of no use if your interface is not good, because you need to make sure that the web, FTP server and external database are of the most recent, and front end, back end are in sync with each other when it comes to use of technology which is upgrading over a period of time. So lastly but not least, when you are getting into the cryptocurrency, you have to ensure that though we are not having any state boundaries, but yes, when it comes to legal aspects, you are that sound enough to give a legality to your cryptocurrency, so that it has its own strength into the market. Because if I want to have stability with my cryptocurrency, then that has to be maintained over a period of time. It cannot go without a stability into the market, without the security mechanism with it. So in a blockchain, you need to have the security mechanism established very properly, followed with the value of the cryptocurrency that you are creating, followed by the health of the ecosystem that you are building for your cryptocurrency. So all these three things together makes the cryptocurrency a success if you are launching your own. Definitely, these are certain cryptocurrencies which you see that you can create and all those things. You can also buy and sell cryptocurrency, just like our fiat currency in our stock markets. You see that with the stock exchange, we are in a position to do certain transactions. Likewise, there are cryptocurrency exchanges that allow for converting one's holding into cash, like Coinbase, Karen. I'll just show you the website of Coinbase. So here you see in Coinbase, just like any other stock market, you can see here how different bitcoins are available. You can register to this and you can transact into this. Just like any stock market portfolio, you can have your own portfolio into this system. Similarly is with the Karen. So as we have seen that we can buy, sell cryptocurrency, we can create our own cryptocurrency. There is a lot of technicalities involved with this cryptocurrency. There are but obvious questions. Particularly, I'll take something which is related to bitcoins. So if I ask that I can create any number of bitcoins and I can use it, no. The maximum bitcoin that can be mined are 21 million. So all miners can mine only one block of bitcoin per 10 minutes. And number of bitcoins that one gets per block is based on to 50 into 1 by 2 to the power of x, where x is nothing but the number of years is divided by 4. So how this ratio is maintained? It is maintained that the miner who mines the bitcoin, it is his skill based on which he is going to earn certain bitcoins. For bitcoins you are mining, the value of bitcoins is dependent upon this formula, and this is helping to protect the cryptocurrency from inflation shocks and more receptive to the market demand over a period of time. So it is expected that if we have this 21 million bitcoins, maximum bitcoins, the last bitcoin is estimated to be mined around in 2140. Though we see that this Bitcoin community is coming into picture a lot, and a lot of people are getting into it, there is a possibility that there can be changes into it, where the medium of exchanges and all those things at national, international level will come into picture and may have some strategic changes into this Bitcoin. But as of now, the things are working with this. So in my talk, I have tried to get into starting from what money is, where this cryptocurrency is, how the boundaries are associated when it comes to fiat currency and cryptocurrency, then getting into the technicalities of cryptocurrency, finally, whether yes, you can create your own cryptocurrencies or not, buy or sell it. I've tried to touch most of the things, but definitely if there are any questions onto this, I would be happy to take questions onto this. I'm done from my part. Any questions, please?
Thank you, ma'am.
So,
Any questions from audience? No?
Hello.
yes, please go ahead if you have any question.
It is said that the cryptocurrency is slowly going to get into the market. But do you find that it will be soon comes in also in a share market like a place that we can buy a share, we can sell a share by using a cryptocurrency? Because Bitcoin market we have seen that very few persons are believing in that, and the price of Bitcoin is going to increase day by day, but it has not been registered by our Indian, what I say, that government. So how do you
Yes.
say that this particular Bitcoin? I come to know that that cryptocurrency and all these things, they are not related. They are interrelated with the blockchain technology. But blockchain technology is not dependent on cryptocurrency. I know that. But what is the ultimate source of blockchain technology that will become in future market? If you can elaborate that into, that will be very nice.
See, I'll show you one article from Economics Time. Now, if you go to this article, I knew this question will come, so I kept it ready. So, what is cryptocurrency in India? The past, present, and uncertain future. So, if you go to the tech part of the Economic Times, dated 9th March 2021, you will find that when it comes to blockchain is a technology. One thing you need to understand this. On this blockchain technology, we have this cryptocurrency as one of the use cases. There are a lot many use cases for blockchain, and cryptocurrency is one which we are going to use. So in this article, you'll see that in India particularly, how the things started coming up. If I look at this particular date, that is 4th March 2020, the Supreme Court strikes down RBI's banking ban on crypto, terming that April circular is unconstitutional, and that is why a decaying cryptocurrency got jolted back to the life. And if you look at the recent progress, what we see from Indian scenario over here, so in January 29, 2021, the government says it will introduce a bill to create a sovereign digital currency and simultaneously ban all private cryptocurrency. The recently reviewed industry realizes it faces a second existential threat into the system. So a bill seeks to prohibit all private currencies in India. However, it would allow certain exceptions to promote the underlying technology of the cryptocurrency and its uses. This is what the government says over here. So basically, when we are looking into these things, the technology is one aspect. You are going to involve, if you are getting involved into any cryptocurrency, for example, you are buying Bitcoin or anything. For example, if you see here, when I showed you this Coinbase, in Coinbase, it's not Bitcoin. Just like in a stock market, you have different stocks. Here you have different coins, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and also on. And you can see their prices also, and their price in Indian rupees. Here you can see what is the price of Bitcoin. Here you can see what is the price of Tether over here. So here, if you want to trade with them, you can get it, start trading with these things also. But or what are the presently prevailing in the system? As I said, that identity is based. currency, as well as you will be getting into the system with your identity, with the addresses into the system. Your real life identity is not agile, and that is why when I said that when it comes at economic front, tax paying, well, if you are earning a lot of things into cryptocurrency, this tax payment and FEMA and all these organizations, all this have several questions to be raised into the cryptocurrency. I hope I have addressed your question. Any other question?
So, in my opinion, that the answer which you have given is a very correct one. But I would like to ask that the technology people should think about positively about this, and they should guide, because the digital divide is going to come into the market, into the world, and it has been the knowledge-driven technology will be advanced. So, can you able to guide us in a future which type of digital coins will come, and what should be the scenario of investments and all these things which will give financial freedom or like that?
I'll like give an example. See, when it comes to income, I work and I generate my income. So that income is what active income that I'm generating. From your question, I see that if I'm trying to invest into some cryptocurrency, then what will be the value of that cryptocurrency over a period of time? So when I'm looking for investment into cryptocurrency, I'm looking for the passive income that is generated from this cryptocurrency. Now, actually, the currency gains its value based on the demand and supply. For example, to explain this, I would like to tell you that suppose in 2001, I purchased Apple iPad. It costed $400. At that time, if I would have invested that $400, instead of buying into Apple iPad, if I would have brought shares of Apple at that time, probably the value of that $400 would have gone to $39,000 as of date. Okay, so I would have obtained a growth from $400 to $39,000 by now. So this, if I look at that, why did I purchase Apple iPad in 2001? I should have taken stock of Apple, and this would have been the growth. But remember that the growth to that particular product came based on the demand to what the Apple products have into the market. If everybody would have thought that I will not buy Apple iPhone, Apple iPad, but I will just invest into the stock, but because there is no market into for the Apple products, there would have been no growth, and maybe that $400 would have come to something less than $400 if there would have been no market over there. So when it comes to economy, it is a matter of demand and supply related to a product, and this money is something which contributes into this. So when we say that, when we are looking at cryptocurrency, as I told you that you don't have infinite number of cryptocurrency, it is limited. It is limited, and now if you are looking for getting into the technology, if you say from I'm a technologist, if I want to make my future based on this, if you are a core technologist, good in programming skill, you understand the concept of blockchain, then definitely you can think of getting yourself as a blockchain. You can get as a miner over there. Being a miner, you will be earning incentives based on how many confirmations you do by solving certain puzzles over there, and that brings the money. So technologically, this can be done. Otherwise, just like we do our normal transactions using bitcoins, definitely as an you can have your address identity into the system and you can use it. There are a lot of things. Definitely, is going to change the way this economy is functioning right now, because we are giving a global scenario through the cryptocurrency that we are looking forward to get to use over a period of time. There is no something that you can create your own cryptocurrency. I cannot say that this is the cryptocurrency. If you go to the Coinbase or Train and other websites over there, you will find that there are a lot of cryptocurrency, but you can create your own cryptocurrency provided you have a strong blockchain technology. Any other question, please?
Hello. Any question, please? Okay, thank you very much, madam, for your knowledgeable session and clearing our various concept of cryptocurrency. Now, I would like to request to Dr. Sonali Gaikwad, madam, for vote of thanks. Gaikwad, madam, the mic is open.
Thank you. Good afternoon all. On the behalf of the Department of Computer Science, I, Dr. Sonali Gaikwad, Technical Secretary of the National Level Workshop on a Cryptocurrency, would like to express my gratitude towards everyone who helped me in a successful organizing for a cryptocurrency workshop. I am thankful to our college principal, Dr. A.M. Garode sir, to giving permission to conduct this workshop. I am thankful to our resource person, Professor Chitra Desai madam, for sharing the expertise and the advancement in the area of a cryptocurrency. I am thankful to our IQSC coordinator, Dr. Vanita Pochi madam, for motivating and encourage us organizing such a socio-technical event. And I am thankful to our organizing team, HOD, Dr. A.B. Kadam sir, Dr. M.E. Zadav madam, Dr. Dilip Gawande sir, Mr. Sachin Chavan sir, and Mr. Rahul Bhatkar sir. I am thankful to our college staff also. Thank you for the active participation in the online workshop. Without you, this event could not have been possible. Thank you very much for everyone. All participants will get e-certificate after filling feedback form. The feedback form link will get on your registered valid email ID. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chitra ma'am, and thank you everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
So now I leave. Everyone will get their in their email ID feedback link. Thank you very much.